Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Tonight, I have a story for you that will make you think twice about booking that cheap, cozy-looking hostel for your next weekend trip. It's a tale that proves some places are cheap for a reason, and that some doors are better left unopened. So turn down the lights, get comfortable, and let's talk about the last night at the Cedar Creek Hostel. The hostel in the quiet town of Cedar Creek had always been known for two things. It was incredibly cheap, and it was, well, just a little bit off. But for three friends, Alex, Mia and Jake, it was the perfect spot for a spontaneous weekend getaway. It looked rustic, charming, and exactly what they needed to escape the city for a couple of days. Little did they know, they were walking into a place that had no intention of letting them leave. Their first night started out just as you'd expect. The old building creaked and groaned, the floorboards moaned under their feet, and the wind howled softly outside. They settled into their room, laughing and planning their hiking trip for the next day. The initial strangeness of the old hostel was part of its charm. To them, the creaks of the old building were just that, creaks. But as the clock ticked past midnight, the atmosphere began to shift. It started subtly. Faint whispers seemed to echo from the long, unlit corridor just outside their door. Jake, ever the skeptic, laughed it off. "It's just the wind, guys. This old place probably has 1,000 drafts." He pulled his blanket up, ready to go to sleep. But Mia wasn't so sure. She shivered, clutching her own blanket a little tighter. "It doesn't sound like the wind," she whispered, her eyes fixed on the door. It sounded like voices. Too quiet to make out the words, but undeniably human. Trying to break the sudden tension, Alex grabbed his phone to check the time, maybe play some music. But as he unlocked it, the screen went completely black. For a second, he thought the battery had died. But then it flickered back to life, the home screen glowing eerily in the dark room. As the light from the phone cast long shadows across the floor, something moved in the corner of the hallway, visible through their slightly ajar door. It was a shadow, but it was wrong. It was too long, too thin, and it moved with an impossible silence that made the hairs on Alex's arms stand up. He quickly shut the door, locking it. None of them said a word. The next morning, the bright sunlight streaming through the window made the previous night's events feel like a bad dream. The fear and unease had vanished with the dawn. They convinced themselves they had just been tired, their imaginations running wild in an unfamiliar place. As they went down for breakfast, they saw the receptionist from the night before, a woman with a polite but distant smile. Trying to make small talk, Jake mentioned how quiet the hallway was despite the old building's noises. The receptionist just stared at them, her smile faltering for a moment. "That's because you're the only ones on that floor," she said, her tone flat. "Room 6 hasn't had guests in years." She glanced at them strangely before turning her attention back to her computer. A cold dread began to creep back into the room. Confused and unsettled, the three friends looked at the hostel map hanging on the wall by the entrance. Their fingers traced the layout of the second floor until they found their room number. It was room 6. A heavy silence fell over them. How could they be in a room that hadn't been used in years? Was the receptionist mistaken? Or was something else going on? They spent the rest of the day in a state of anxious confusion, the beautiful scenery of Cedar Creek now seeming menacing and unwelcoming. As evening approached, the thought of returning to room 6 filled them with a growing sense of panic. They talked about leaving, just packing their bags and driving through the night, but a strange sense of obligation, of unfinished business kept them there. They told themselves it was just one more night. That night, the whispers returned. But this time, they weren't faint echoes from the hallway. They were louder, clearer, and seemed to be coming from inside the room with them. It sounded like dozens of voices, all murmuring at once, their words overlapping into a chilling chorus. Doors down the empty hall began to slam shut, one after another, the sound echoing like gunshots in the dead quiet. The single light bulb in their room flickered violently, plunging them into darkness for seconds at a time before sputtering back to life. Suddenly, Mia gasped and jumped back, her face pale with terror. "Something touched me," she cried, her voice trembling. A cold hand, it brushed my shoulder. But no one was near her. Alex and Jake were on the other side of the room, frozen in place. The feeling of being watched was overwhelming, as if unseen eyes were following their every move from the dark corners of the room. The air grew thick and cold, and the whispers grew into a low, guttural growl. "Okay, that's it, we're leaving," Alex whispered, his voice tight with fear. He scrambled for the door, the others right behind him. But when he grabbed the handle and twisted, it wouldn't budge. It was locked tight. They threw their shoulders against it, but it was like pushing against a solid wall of rock. Panic set in. They rushed to the windows, hoping to climb out, but every single one looked out onto the same empty courtyard. A courtyard that didn't match the front of the building. It was an impossible view. They were trapped. As their last hope faded, the shadows in the room began to deepen and stretch. They pooled together in the center of the floor, twisting and churning like black smoke. Slowly the shadows rose, merging and taking shape until 3 distinct figures stood before them. They looked like grotesque, distorted versions of themselves, Alex, Mia, and Jake. Their faces pulled into sickening grins that stretched too wide. Their eyes empty black voids. A voice, or rather hundreds of voices speaking as one, hissed from the 3 shadowy figures. "You shouldn't have stayed." The sound filled the room, vibrating through their bones, a chilling final verdict. The shadows lunged forward. By dawn, the Cedar Creek Hostel was silent once more. The morning sun cast its warm glow through the windows, and the old building seemed peaceful again. The receptionist unlocked the main entrance, ready to greet any new guests who might wander in. But upstairs, room 6 was empty. There was no sign of Alex, Mia, or Jake. No bags, no clothes, no note. There were only 3 beds, all perfectly made, as if they had never been slept in at all. And if you looked closely, you could see 3 small faint shadows still lingering in the corners of the room, watching, waiting for the next visitors to arrive. The Cedar Creek Hostel had claimed them. And as it always had, it always would. Thanks for listening to tonight's story. It really makes you wonder what secrets old buildings hold, doesn't it? If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Let me know in the comments what you think happened to Alex, Mia, and Jake. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one.